Oh boy, what the heck is going on? Cheryl Bosa has reposted a picture of both of her sons in a 49ers uniform, but I'd caution you that she did something very similar last year, right before Joey Bosa signed with the Bills. That being said, I will repeat what I have been maintaining now for a few weeks. The 49ers are interested in Joey Bosa, and there seems to be a chance that he'll join his brother not too long after his brother restructured his contract to open up some salary cap space for the 49ers. More on that in a bit. Now I'm talking about what the heck is going on with Brandon Aiyuk. A lot of people seem confused as to why he's still part of the 49ers roster. Well, at least for now, there's no downside for San Francisco. And yes, maybe, just maybe, they can flip him for a low round draft pick, like a 7th round draft pick, when the time is right. And that wouldn't be until June for the 49ers. Anyway, speaking of the wide receiver position, how about an ex 49ers receiver? We're at the most beautiful spot of Nashville. That reminded me that Jauan Jennings is from this area, and it also reminded me that Jauan Jennings has yet to sign in free agency. So yes, there is a chance that the 49ers can get him back at a bargain, and if that happens, I think they might have one of the best rushing offenses in the history of football. Take a look at the reflecting pool here at Cheekwood on a beautiful, beautiful spring day. That's the reflecting pool, and then if you pan up to the left, you could see the old Cheek Mansion. So I guess the Cheekwood is named after the Cheek family and Cheek Mansion. But take a look at the APYs of the receivers who have signed so far this year. Alec Pierce obviously leads the way, $28.5 million. Wan'Dale Robinson way behind him at $17.5 million. Rashid Shaheed, Romeo Doubs in the 17s, and then it's Mike Evans with the 49ers at $14.1 at a very bargain rate for San Francisco. Jauan Jennings had an offer for $12 million annually from the 49ers at the start of last season. He didn't take it. He bet on himself. I think he wanted over $20 million. The receiver market has cooled off considerably after a half-decade-long heater. I remember over 5 years ago, Christian Kirk signed for $17 million annually with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I don't blame Jauan Jennings for thinking that he could get over 20, but that was in the market last year. And the year before that, all of a sudden, he wasn't lucky enough to be an unrestricted free agent at that time. He hits unrestricted free agency at a time where I think it's going to be hard to get $17 million if you're Jauan Jennings. So if that's the case, what is the 49ers number? Because obviously there's a number. He's a good football player. He's somebody who blocks really well, and we saw him go off for the 11 catches, 170-plus yards against the Rams when he was playing the Z receiver in that 2024 game. So he's got a lot of capability. He's great at separating on the out routes. He's extremely dependable on leverage downs. We've seen that over and over again. He could throw the football too. Here in Tennessee, he was a star quarterback. He was recruited to the University of Tennessee as a QB, and we've seen him throw a couple touchdown passes now with the 49ers in the Super Bowl and then in the divisional playoffs against the Philadelphia Eagles. So there is a price at which the 49ers would want him. Is it between $7 and $10 million a year? If his market depresses down to that level, I don't think we're at that territory yet, but the fact that he hasn't signed means he hasn't gotten the offer that he wants. And the 49ers, in a structure that comes out to less than $10 million per year for Jauan Jennings, think about Mike Evans on one side, Jauan Jennings on the other, maybe as a third receiver was Ricky Pearsall playing the flanker role. They would have the best perimeter run blocking of any team in the NFL, maybe the best in history. I mean, Mike Evans is 6'5", 230. Jauan Jennings is 6'3". And then also Mike has missed some time. He had the hamstring injury, then the broken collarbone this past year. I think that to ensure that this offense keeps on clicking, even if Mike misses some time, he's going to be 33 years old, you need another big receiver on the team to play that X position in a bind. You don't want Jauan Jennings there all the time. You want him matched up against safeties and slot cornerbacks who are smaller than him as the third receiver so he can terrorize with his run blocking, terrorize with his, for lack of a better word, shit talking, which is what happens with Jauan Jennings on the field. And then you want him on those outbreakers, third and Jauan, delivering against
guys where his lack of speed is not nearly as big of a concern. So it's possible the 49ers and Jauan Jennings, at this point, I don't want to say don't hold your breath anymore. Maybe hold your breath. Jauan Jennings could return to San Francisco. One more look at the beautiful reflecting pool. It was about 30 minutes away from here that Jauan Jennings went to Blackman High School in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, starred there as a dual threat quarterback. Then he went to Knoxville, where he was converted to a wide receiver, drafted by the 49ers in the 7th round. Now he has hit unrestricted free agency for the first time, and he has yet to sign a new deal.
Certainly would be something if Jauan Jennings rejoined the 49ers, even if that is not the likely outcome right now. He's still a good enough football player to where it is something that we have to consider at this point. Heck, how about Jauan Jennings and Joey Bosa for San Francisco, and what's been just a tremendously active first week here of free agency. 49ers have already added several veterans. They've even made a trade for Osa Odigizua. They're obviously not done following the addition of the punter Corliss Waitman on Saturday. The 49ers have 70 of 90 roster spots filled. So still 20 to go, only 6 draft picks. I'm not counting Brandon Aiyuk amongst the 70, by the way. So technically they've got 71 on the roster right now. But we are projecting into the future. We know that Brandon Aiyuk is going to be gone by September 1st at the latest. That is when he is due another $25 million. So theoretically, the league should know that the 49ers have to release Brandon Aiyuk before then. That being said, perhaps somebody at some point is going to be willing to pay a little bit for that release from the 49ers to happen sooner, because there is value in getting somebody into your building, getting somebody into your training camp. And as it stands right now, the 49ers can prevent Brandon Aiyuk from going to somebody else's training camp. That $25 million triggers at latest. Like, the 49ers have to pick up the option bonus by September 1st. So if he's still on the roster, then he is due that money. But say that the Washington Commanders want Brandon Aiyuk in their building sooner, they can hasten the process by saying, hey, pick swap, 6-7, or here's a 7th round pick. Theoretically, that can happen. And in the event that that does happen, the 49ers would like to be beneficiaries, and you can't be a beneficiary if Brandon Aiyuk is not on your roster. So in that way, he still is a potential asset. Obviously, it's a ticking time bomb right now. It's more of a liability, but they can eject from it before September 1st. Nobody's going to stop the 49ers from releasing Brandon Aiyuk before that September 1st date. You saw it with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think the Guy Haberman made this point. They obviously weren't going to release Jimmy Garoppolo any sooner than they had to, except that Jimmy was playing a more important position, and Jimmy hadn't burned his bridge with the team. So the fact that he turned around and started playing for them when the 49ers needed that in 2022, given all those extenuating circumstances, that actually was a logical progression of events. Brandon Aiyuk is not going to stay with the 49ers and play for this football team, but they can hold on to him for similar reasons as they held on to Jimmy Garoppolo back in 2022 through the offseason when he wasn't even practicing with the team. And that is when a player is an asset and there's no loss in keeping him around, you might as well do that and maximize the chances of benefiting from a potential return. And in the case of Brandon Aiyuk, that is the one pathway to a potential return. You're going to need somebody who will successfully amend Brandon Aiyuk's contract to be a trade partner. And based on what we know right now, Washington is the only team where that makes sense, because it seems that Brandon Aiyuk wants to play in Washington based on some of the reports that we've gathered. So the only team that can amend Brandon Aiyuk's contract is a team where he would want to go and be willing to amend that contract, because it's going to take his signature to do that. You have to remove that $25 million explosion that's coming up, the ticking time bomb in the contract. So Washington with the 49ers actually have a good relationship with the front office. Adam Peters is the general manager, used to be in San Francisco's building. If they want Brandon Aiyuk early, if it is indeed the plan to bring him in on a smaller deal than the one that he has with the 49ers right now, if they want to, A, cut the line, B, get Aiyuk early, the 49ers can say, 7th-round pick, let's do it. And for the 49ers, that actually wouldn't make sense until after June 1st. I'm sure they can agree to a trade right now, but they cannot execute one until after June 1st due to the financial situation, the dead money proration. You want to stave that off as far as possible into the future. And the way that you do that is either with a post-June 1st release, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you lose the potential asset, or with a post-June 1st trade, but you cannot execute a trade post-June 1st until after June 1st. There's no designation for a trade. So that's where the 49ers stand right now with Brandon Aiyuk. Some might say that they're holding him hostage or that it's personal, and hey, maybe it is, but it's also business. Personal interests and business interests would overlap in this case, and the 49ers owe Brandon Aiyuk no favors. He did them no favors, even though the 49ers did him a massive favor by not rescinding the $120 million contract extension offer that was waiting on his desk for about 3 weeks before he signed it. Obviously, he did them no favors by essentially going MIA right after that contract was signed. I mean, he wasn't a good player over the first 7 weeks of 2024 before he got hurt. And then Brandon Aiyuk literally went MIA, so obviously he did the 49ers no favors there. That has ruffled a lot of feathers in the 49ers building, and it has left them in no mood to be generous. So they're going to play this in a way that is as advantageous as possible to them from a business standpoint, and they're not going to be giving Brandon Aiyuk any handouts. They're not going to be giving the Washington Commanders, if they want Brandon Aiyuk, any handouts by releasing him early for free when there is zero benefit to them for doing that. No, Aiyuk is not a distraction. He's not even in the building for the 49ers. Moving ahead, this time last year, we were breaking down a 49ers trade of Jordan Mason away to the Minnesota Vikings. That happened on Saturday night of last year. Saturday morning of last year, Kyle Juszczyk re-signed with the 49ers after they had initially cut him to begin free agency. He shopped around, even visited the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he determined that the 49ers were the best place for him. What a difference a year makes in terms of the vibe of strategy of free agency. Last year, the 49ers had to cut costs in free agency because they were about to spend a record amount of money on their own players, Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, and George Kittle, in new contracts, re-signings over the spring. This year, with less contractual business of that sort, Trent Williams is actually the one that's on the table for the 49ers, still TBD, but with less business of that sort, and with the football team generally reset with a successful 2025 draft, the 49ers have moved in on veterans again in free agency. It's really been a cool cycle to watch, and I don't think it's finished yet. That's why we talk about Joey Bosa joining his brother Nick. That's why, we're looking at this, still 20 spots on the 49ers 90-man roster. That's why this free agency, I think it's only about, for the entire NFL, maybe 50% of the way through. Now, the second half moves slower and is less prominent, but there still are potentially prominent signings for the 49ers to make before it is time to head into draft mode. Draft mode, well, that probably starts in about a week, I would say. You officially flip the page to the draft at the NFL owners meetings, which happen at the end of March. They straddle March and April. And then, of course, April is the season of, well, the pro days have already started, but the April is the season of all that draft hype. And maybe the 49ers can add a pick. Right now, the 49ers have 3 picks in the 4th round to round things out, thanks to that compensatory process. But I think that it is much, much more relevant to continue talking about the entire free agency process now. So take Cheryl Bosa's post with a grain of salt, but also realize that the Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa pairing is something the 49ers were definitely interested in last year, just not at the price that Joey Bosa wanted. And it's his prerogative to go out there and make sure that he gets the best deal possible for himself. Maybe this year things have changed. Joey was a Pro Bowler again last year for the Buffalo Bills. He had 4 forced fumbles in the first 4 games of 2024. Played in 15 games last year for Buffalo, 50-plus pressures. There had been big concerns about his health the previous 2 seasons, but last year, Joey Bosa delivered a very, very solid campaign for the Bills, and there seems to be a natural spot for him with the 49ers here in 2026, especially with the retirement of Bryce Huff and the move to Raheem Morris as defensive coordinator. You know, Joey dropped back into coverage 23 times last year for the Bills. That was the second most in his career. 49ers looking for a very well-rounded defensive end, somebody who plays the run, somebody who can drop into zone coverage a few times over the course of the season. I think they're expanding the profile of their defensive ends. And of course, they're looking for a bookend to Nick Bosa. These two didn't overlap at Ohio State. Joey had declared for the draft before Nick Bosa entered college, but they were teammates at St. Thomas Aquinas High School in Fort Lauderdale back in 2012. Nick was a freshman. Joey was a senior. Result, 14-2 season for St. Thomas Aquinas and a Florida state championship. Will they be teammates again? Well, stay tuned. Hope everybody enjoys Sunday and subscribe because we're on Highway 101.